I'd like to call the Milan Area Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, June 26, 2024. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you to those attending this evening as well as those who will be watching the recording. All board members are present except for Ms. Rosen Leacher, Ms. Murray, and Ms. Gutierrez, who are all excused. First up, order of business is communications for public comment. A reminder, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you will be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Are there any students who'd like to address the board? Are there any public members who'd like to address the board? All right, seeing none, we will move on to routine matters for approval. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the budget hearing of June 5th, 2024.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Pryor.
So moved and supported to approve the minutes of the budget hearing of June 5th, 2024. Is there any questions or concerns? Hearing none, Ms. Heika.
Heika, yes. Pryor,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 5th, 2024.
Motion by Pryor.
Support by Farrow.
So moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 5th, 2024. Are there any questions or concerns? Hearing none, Ms. Heika.
Heika, yes. Pryor,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting closed session of June 5th, 2024.
Motion by Pryor.
Support by Farrow.
So moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting closed session of June 5th, 2024. These are the ones found in your envelopes. Are there any concerns? You can pass those in. All right. So moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting closed session of June 5th, 2024. Ms. Heika.
Pryor,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow.
Yes.
Heika, yes. Motion carries 4-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is board organization. This is the second reading of our board meeting dates for the 24-25 school year. I need a motion to approve the 24-25 board meeting dates as detailed in attachment A.
Moved by Heika.
Support by Farrow.
So moved and supported to approve the 24-25 board meeting dates as detailed in attachment A. One change we made we added the July 10th meeting, or moved the July 17th meeting to July 10th. And then we also added a meeting for Saturday, August 10th, which is going to be a superintendent evaluation training. That's in order for us to meet the new law in regards to rate of reliability and the superintendent evaluation. That it'll count as a meeting since we'll all be attending, but MASB will be here to lead us in that training, and that's a Saturday morning from 9 to 12 on August 10th. So, and that's reflected in the posting that's going to be posted at the doors. So, any questions or concerns? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the 24-25 board meeting dates as detailed in attachment A. Ms. Heika.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow.
Yes.
Heika, yes. Pryor,
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right. Then I just wanted to the big red chat dates. We definitely want to get those set. With I know Betty, Miss Rosenleacher has been helpful with that. So when she gets back, we'll take a look at those dates. Obviously, we still want to get a quarterly big red board chat out there. It's something we want to continue to do. Um, attendance hasn't been great, but we've had great feedback. We've had great conversation, especially if we are going to consider a sinking fund. I see a lot of value in these, at least the first two, or the first one before the election. So once Ms. Rosenleacher gets back, we'll look at that and get those set moving forward. So does anybody else you have any questions or concerns? All right. Just to let people know that we are still committed to doing those this school year. All right, we will move on to our strategic plan business in the area of finance and operations. I need a motion to authorize borrowing up to $1 million against anticipated state aid for the 2024-25 fiscal year as specified in the borrowing resolution included in attachment B.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Pharaoh.
It's been moved and supported to authorize the borrowing of up to $1 million against this anticipated state aid for the 24-25 fiscal year as specified in the borrowing resolution included as an attachment B. This is something that we do every year in regards to the timing of state payments. Other districts do it as well, but Mr. Gearbaugh can talk further in regards to that.
Yes, thank you. Just so everyone understands, the reason that we need to borrow and the state sets up a borrowing plan for all districts is because we do not get a state aid payment in September. Basically, that means that we get paid 11 months a year, but we have to pay bills 12 months a year. And for most districts, that causes a situation at some point throughout the year where cash flow is low. It doesn't mean that we can't pay our bills or that we're not meeting our obligations or that we don't have a balanced budget. It just simply means that at that point in time, our cash flow is low. There's a very detailed process that Miss Hendricks goes through to determine how much we need to borrow. And that starts with figuring out which month the cash flow is lowest. Then within that month, which week the cash flow is lowest, and it just keeps working down until you find out where the lowest point is. That's because the state does not allow districts to over borrow. They want to help us, but they don't want to allow districts to over borrow. So it really is simply a cash flow issue. We are borrowing less this year than last year. And that is just because of where bills fall and where our cash flow happens to be low and how low it happens to be. So, and that can be affected by when holidays fall and when payrolls. I mean, there are so many different things that affect it. So Ms. Hendricks does a complete evaluation. She then sends that to our law firm. Our law firm reviews that evaluation and then approves that resolution and writes that resolution to come to the board with.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Any questions or concerns? All right. It's been moved and supported to authorize borrowing up to $1 million against the anticipated state aid for the 24-25 fiscal year as specified in the borrowing resolution included as an attachment B. Ms. Heike?
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Pryor.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Next up, I need a motion to approve the Food Service Management Company contract as included in attachment C for the 24-25 school year for the Compass Group USA Chartwells Division. Further, to authorize the superintendent or designee to sign all the necessary documents.
Moved by Pharaoh.
Support by Pryor.
It's been moved and supported to approve the Food Service Management Company contract as included in attachment C for the 24-25 school year for the Compass Group USA Chartwells Division, and further to authorize the superintendent or designee to sign all the necessary documents. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Yes, so just so everyone understands, every 5 years we are required by state and federal law to bid out our food service program. In between that, every year it requires the board to renew that contract. So it's not that you can't bid it out earlier than 5 years, but every 5 years you have to. That process is highly regulated because it involves federal dollars for the free and reduced lunch programs. So there are all kinds of different things that the companies have to attest to. It's a very detailed process. You have to have a very specific bid point calculator. RFPs go out, there are certain timelines, and each step of the process, everything is reviewed by MDE. So I prepare the whole RFP and then I send it to MDE and they say, yes, you can send it out. I send the advertisement that's going out to bidders and they say yes. I mean, they have to approve it each step of the way. We did have two bidders, Chartwell's and a second company. Chartwell's was the lower cost, as well as beating out the other company in one or two of the other areas in the bid sheet that the state of Michigan approved for us to use. So in the end, they win the bid. Their contract that is included in the board pack, that's part of what you have to approve, is very similar to previous years. The increase in cost was not drastic over the last contract, and it was $15,000 to $20,000 cheaper than the other bidder. So even though we are going with the same company, it's good to know that they had to make sure they kept their pencils sharp and that another company kept them honest with the pricing. And we greatly appreciate that. It's always good to have a checks and balance. But in the end, we have run all of the paperwork past MDE and they have approved our recommendation for Chartwell's for a 5-year contract. We were able to maintain that each year the costs in that contract can go up by no more than 3%.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, it's been moved and supported to approve the food service management company contract as included in attachment C for the 2024-2025 school year for the Compass Group USA Chartwell's division. Further, to authorize the superintendent or designee to sign all the necessary documents. Ms. Heika?
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Pryor,
Yes.
motion carries 4-0.
All right, next up on the agenda is a discussion regarding the site sinking fund. We started a discussion about this at the last meeting. Mr. Gear brought us some recommendations. This is something that Mr. Farrow has recommended to this board in regards to the school finances. There are quite a few other districts that have this sinking fund in order to help pay for capital replacements, basically. There's a lot of categories that it can be used for. It's very regulated by the state on how these funds can be used. So we do anticipate on approving some language to go on the November ballot. And one of those things is the amount of years and the mills that we're going to request. I believe the first thing that we looked at was 5 years for 1.5, and then, as Ms. Heike pointed out, it would make more sense to have that be an even year, so that we can help with the cost of the election, because we want to make sure that we're not necessarily paying for these things to be on the ballot. So that kind of summarizes where we're at. Do you have anything more to add, Mr. Earbaugh, before we discuss more? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just share, just for everyone listening that maybe didn't hear at the last meeting. Site sinking funds are used for multiple purposes. All of those purposes have to be in the language of the ballot proposal. Our ballot proposal would allow funds to be used for the construction or repair of school buildings. And I do want to be clear, we did have a question at the last board meeting about the word construction. We have no intent in this district of constructing an entire new building, and the amount that we would collect each year would really not allow for that. But we have to keep the word construction in there, or we would not be able to do any type of major renovation. Like, let's say we wanted to renovate the Simons entrance area so that it was more secure. In order to be able to do that, we have to have the word construction in the ballot language. So the first item is construction and repair of school buildings. The second possible expense category is school security improvements. The third is for upgrading our technology. It has to be instructional technology. So either something the kids are using to learn or something the teachers are using to teach. It's pretty limited as to what it can be used for technology. It can also be used to purchase buses or anything that deals with buses. Um, and so those are really the main categories that we are looking at. You are allowed to go for anywhere up to 3 mills and for anywhere up to 10 years. I appreciate the conversation at the last meeting that Ms. Heike brought up about an even number of years. And actually, as I went back and did more consideration, the recommendation I'm bringing to you this time for discussion is for 10 years, and there's a very specific reason why. Our school bond debt that we have will be paid off in 2034, 2035. As you know, right now, it would be very difficult for us to go for any type of major bond proposal because of the mills that our community is paying to pay off our current debt. So this site sinking fund could help us maintain our facilities. And if we did it for 10 years, we would have that support until the other bonds are paid off. And at that point, the district could look at what their needs are moving forward. So we had talked at the last meeting, should it be 6, 8, or 10? Based on the fact that 10 would get us until we might have the potential to do something additionally. I think it makes sense to go for 10 years at this point in time, but obviously that's open to discussion to you and open for questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Yerba. So we can, does anybody want to speak to this? Ms. Pryor?
I have a question. So I heard you say that we could go up to 3 mills. I mean, I want to be respectful of the taxes that our community would be paying, but is there a reason why we aren't going up to 3 mills? And I ask that because it is going to be 10 years in between the time that of now and where we would be looking at getting any other sort of bond. If we approve this, or if the community approves this, and I would want to put us in a situation where we don't have the funds to construct or repair our aging buildings as they go forward. I mean, I don't want to pay more in taxes. I don't want the community to pay more in taxes. But if we get into a situation, especially now with them not giving us a foundation allowance as the years go on, I would hate to be in that situation. So what's the reason behind not going all the way up to 3?
I think you stated it well. We're trying to find a balance between what the district needs to be able to properly maintain our facilities and not attempting to overtax our community. And I think you put it well. We want to respect our taxpayers. It's hard to anticipate exactly how much we would need each given year. But I think we want to be fair and attempt to do what we feel is best for our taxpayers in balance with our needs. The nice thing is 1.5 mils, as the total taxable value in the district goes up, that dollar amount collected will go up.
Okay.
So the nice thing is, while we have to list that dollar amount, and in year one it's approximated to be 1.177 million, that dollar amount would rise if more houses were built or businesses were open or taxable value of individual houses go up. So it would at least hopefully keep pace with some of the increases in costs that things might experience over those 10 years.
Mrs. Sislo.
Yeah, Mr. Farrow.
And I just want to comment on the reason why I support the going to 10 years on this mill. I do think that the 1.5 mil is reasonable. I think we're being mindful of the tax that our residents are going to see as a result of putting this in front of them. In terms of the 10 years, part of the reason that I support the 10 years is because you're going to have the need for these capital improvements, renovations, repairs of school facilities. It's not going to just be, those expenses are not going to occur just over a 5-year period. They will occur over an extended period of time because we have aging buildings, and as Mr. Garibald said, you could certainly go for more than 1.5, and you could go for, 2 mills, 2.5 mills, 3 mills, and you could do that for a 10-year period. But um, I think, at least from my perspective, um, we do want to be very conscious of, we are going to put this in front of the residents. We're going to ask them to support us in this way. I do think that the funds generated from this sinking fund are necessary. It is not sustainable for the district to continue to pay for large expenses out of the general fund, as we are currently doing today. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of the sinking fund is that the sinking fund will allow the district to keep more money in education while increasing safety and innovation on behalf of our students and staff. I do want to also mention, because I had a neighbor that inquired, the sinking fund is restricted to specific uses as defined by the state of Michigan. It cannot be used for general operating expenses. It cannot be used for salaries. It cannot be used for employee benefits or routine maintenance. So another question that one of the residents had inquired about was, how will the sinking funds for the district be identified? Currently, there have been some short and long-term needs that have been identified, but the community will be involved in this process. As Mr. Sislo said, we'll probably have some big red chats to discuss this further. But yeah, I mean, as Mr. Gearbo indicated, security, looking at our athletic facilities, parking lots, sidewalks, asphalt replacement, elevators, vehicles, buses, roofs, heating and cooling. Those are all the things that currently come out of general fund. And if we can get the support of the community on this sinking fund, that is going to help the district significantly with regard to our general fund. That's all for me.
Thank you, Mr. Farrow. Ms. Heike.
Mr. Sislo, I mentioned a couple of these things at the last meeting, but I'll just reiterate them for anyone who's watching the meeting tonight and didn't watch the last one. I also support 1.5 mils for 10 years. I do like tying it to the end of the payoff of the bonds that we've been paying on. And I also agree with Mr. Farrow that these expenses are not going away. And so, we need to come up with a long-term plan on how to manage these expenses. I also think this is important for the district because this will help us address many of the things that, or some of the issues that, come up in our conversations with members of the community, come up at public comments. If you can free up these costs from your general fund budget, that will allow you to pay teachers more. That will allow you to do things that will help you to retain the teachers that we want to retain. It will allow us to pay parapros more. All these things we want to do to help take care of our staff. Freeing up the dollars in the general fund through a sinking fund will help us do that. I think it will also help us to become more competitive within our area. There are lots of districts around us that have a sinking fund, so they're already able to use their general fund in ways that we aren't because we don't have the sinking fund. And you don't have to go very far in this community to see, buildings that have some safety features that we don't have, athletic fields that have some upgrades that we don't have, and parents are looking for those things, and we need to be able to be more competitive, not only in our pay so that we can attract and retain the appropriate people that our students need and deserve, but also so that we can attract more students and retain the students that we have in this district who are searching for these things that we can't provide right now.
Cool. And just so that, well, I did say cool. Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. Well stated. I guess I'm thinking about air conditioning. But obviously, just so that we're all, I mean, when we talk about a mill, it's basically, we're talking about 1.5, it'd be $150 of $100,000 of the value of your, of, of what you own.
Remember,
So-
that's taxable value.
Yeah, taxable.
So it's very
not the-
possible your house is worth $400,000. Your taxable value is about $200,000. That would mean a $300 addition to your tax bill if we went for 1.5 mils.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, at the last meeting, you talked about, the ages of our buildings, where we're at, the building that we're in right now, over 20 years old. As we all know, with our own houses, we have to make plans for those major components of our house. So I guess, I mean, we really haven't talked about, I mean, what are some of the things that have come up recently that we've spent some general fund money on that we could have used a sinking fund for?
Yeah.
So
I can tell you we have had to replace air conditioning units in the district in multiple buildings. We have had to replace water softeners in the buildings. We have had to do major roof renovations, and we have some sections of our roofs that just repairs aren't going to cut it. We're doing the maintenance that we can. And again, these funds can't be used for maintenance, but we have some sections of roof that maintenance isn't even what they need anymore. They need to be replaced. We have parking lots. The teacher parking lot here at the high school is in very bad shape. And again, I want people to understand we've been maintaining, for those that haven't been here for a long time, we fill the cracks, reseal our parking lots, and paint the stripes on them every 3 years. That's given us over 20 years on all of our blacktop without any major need to redo. But at some point, even with good maintenance, you have to have replacement. And that's true with the roofs. We have had walk-in refrigerators and walk-in freezers that hold all of our food for our food service plant programs that have had to be replaced. It's those things, and I think you put it well, Mr. Sislo. I can tell you personally, my house that my wife and I live in is 23 years old. I'm looking at a new roof. I'm looking at a new furnace. I'm looking at a new HVAC system for air conditioning. My driveway is starting to crack. We're not any different than a house is. And I think that's what people need to understand. We're not trying to get a lot of grandiose things out of this. Now, will it help us keep our technology upgraded for our students? Yes. And that's an expense we make every year because we provide every student with a Chromebook. Those only have about a 5-year life expectancy. So we are replacing a large chunk of those. This would allow us to purchase those with these dollars, saving dollars for other educational purposes in the general fund. It really, the safety feature, we do have a couple of buildings where for, I don't want to say large amounts of money, but for a very reasonable amounts of money, you could modify the Simons and the paddock entrances where now a person gets buzzed into the building, into the office only, and then has to get buzzed separately into the building. Any new building being built right now, that's how they're built. So 2 of our buildings could very easily have that done to them. The middle school and high school are a little bit harder because of their design. So there are safety things that we can do as well through construction. And again, I think it's important, and I know several people have said it, the state heavily regulates what these dollars can be used for. There are 4 main purposes, and within those purposes, it's heavily regulated as to what you can do. You can't just come in and fix a boiler. You can't come in and just paint walls. It has to be true long-term upgrades or maintenance. It can't be your annual, well, we need to have the furnace checked out. That's not what this is for. Those are things that the general fund is intended to pay for. The general fund is not intended to pay for a $40,000 boiler for a building or an $80,000 chiller to make sure we keep our buildings cool in the warmer months. So those are some of the specific things. And most of those things that I just listed, we have had happen in the last 2 years, and we've had to pay for them out of the general fund. And that situation is only going to continue to get bigger and bigger.
Mr. Gearbaugh, some of us live in homes that are older than 20 years old. I know it's easy to focus on this building, and it makes sense
Right.
because we
Yep.
all still refer to this as the new high school. But how old are Paddock, Simons, and the middle school? Because I think that helps put
Right.
helps put in perspective too, that like while this building's 20 years old, those buildings are significantly older.
Well, sad to say, Simons was built the same year that I was born, 1969, which makes it 55 years old. The current middle school was built as a high school, and I believe the first piece of that was built in the 40s. And then it was actually built in 7 to 8 pieces over the years, with the last edition being in 1997. Sadly, I still call it the new gym, even though it was built in 1997. And Paddock, I want to say the first part of Paddock was built in the mid 1950s. Now, all of those buildings had sizable renovations done, but even those renovations are 14 years old. And we didn't renovate everything. Like I will tell you, the building that has the most roof issues right now is the middle school. Because when we renovated that building, there were sections of the roof that still had 10 to 15 years of life left in them. It didn't make sense to use the bond dollars to replace roofs that had 10 to 15 years of life left on them. Well, guess what? That 10 to 15 years is up, and now we need to replace them. I really want our community to understand that I and our director of buildings and grounds and this board do everything in our power to get all of the life that we can out of our facilities. I get compliments all the time when we have visitors from other districts come into our buildings of how well kept they are and how clean they are. And I have people all the time when they come in, they say, wow, this building really looks great, talking about the high school. How old is it? And I tell them 20 years old, and they say, there's no way this is 20 years old. We work hard to maintain them. We have roof maintenance plans in place every year. We have parking lot maintenance plans. We do cement work on sidewalks. But at some point, you just get to where the project is bigger than what we can afford to do through those annual maintenance pieces. So yeah, even the high school is 20 years old. The other buildings were renovated 14 years ago, and most of them are 40 to 50 years old from original construction. So yeah, and I mean there are little things that you can see. You can look at some of the if you walk up to Paddock to the main entrance and you look at the bottom 2 rows of brick along the sidewalk. Over time, the snow and salt and ice, those bottom 2 rows of bricks are deteriorating. Well, that building was built in the 1950s. Those are some of the things we're going to have to start looking at, and that's going to be more than we're going to want to cover out of the general fund.
I think that's all very important for all of us to keep in mind. I mean, because my son graduated last year, and his first year, his kindergarten year at Paddock was the year that we did the renovation. So, I mean, though, if we think about it, I mean, that is a very long time ago. It doesn't feel like it was, but when you put it into those perspectives, if you had a graduating senior this year, that was the year just before they started school. So,
Yep.
It's been a very long time since we've been able to do these major renovations in our buildings.
Mr. Farrow? Yeah, I just want to reiterate, in my time on the board and serving as treasurer, currently all of the maintenance, all of the upgrades to our buildings, our athletic facilities are coming out of general fund. It's just not sustainable. I think we're being very responsible in what we are proposing to the community. Assuming that the board approves this tonight, I believe the plan is to develop a committee and start to advertise and explain why we are choosing to take this path. So I want to be clear that, we know that we need the community to support this. and we're going to do our best at making sure that the community gets the information that they need to make an appropriate decision in November. So, and as Mr. Sislo says, I've been a big advocate for this for the past couple of years, actually. I think it's just, this is necessary at this point in time. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Pryor.
I just want to say one other thing. I mean, really thinking about it, I mean, people can be saying, why don't we wait till our bond is paid off now, till 2034, 2035? If you add that time on to what we just talked about, then it makes those renovations 24 years old and this building 30 years old. And that is beyond what any of us can even do on our, we can't wait that long in our own homes. We couldn't wait. I mean, if you think about it during the day, these, where our kids are, we want these buildings safe, up to date, clean, with all the things functioning. So waiting isn't an option anymore.
All right. Any other comments? So we will look for the revised ballot language at our July 10th meeting for us to approve in order for it to be put on the November ballot. And then obviously we'll have some more discussion at our next meeting in regards to next steps with this. So.
That resolution will be prepared by Troon Law. They have a division that just handles ballot proposals, so it's not me putting the language together. I just want our community to understand this is heavily regulated, and that ballot language is critical. Every word and every comma and every period is important. So we will be having our law firm prepare that, and you will be approving the exact ballot language that we will then send to the municipalities to put onto the November ballot.
All right, look forward to next meeting in regards to that. The next area of the strategic plan is personnel and leadership. We do have a teacher appointment. I need a motion to approve Laura Henderson as an elementary teacher and Alexandra Bordeaux as a special education teacher consultant effective for the 24-25 school year.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Pryor.
It's been moved and supported to approve Laura Henderson as an elementary teacher and Alexandra Bordeaux as a special education teacher consultant effective for the 24-25 school year. Discussion. All right, hearing none. Ms. Heike.
Farrow,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Pryor,
Yes.
Sislo.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, that brings us to communications and community engagement. Back to public comments. Are there any students who'd like to address the board? Are there any public members who'd like to address the board? Mr. McMahon, Assistant Superintendent, is excused this evening. Superintendent comments, Mr. Gearbaugh.
Yes. It's hard to believe that our last board meeting was before the school year was over. The summer has been so busy so far. But a couple of things that happened in the school year, but after the last meeting. 5th grade recognition ceremony was held on June 6th during the school day. We had a huge parent turnout there. We were very pleased with that. And we want to thank everyone who was involved in preparing and hosting that event. The 8th grade recognition night was also held on June 6th in the evening. That was a wonderful event as well. And these events take a lot of time when you're getting the certificates together and checking and making sure what students earned each award. It really does take time, and I just want to thank all of those folks that were involved in the preparation and hosting of those events. We also want to thank our students for a wonderful 23-24 school year. We hope that they are all enjoying a safe summer and will continue to do so over the next weeks. The district is currently in negotiations with the Milan Education Association, and we do anticipate a 24-25 school calendar being released soon. The website will be updated as soon as a calendar is agreed upon through the negotiation process. We want to thank our staff as well for a wonderful 23-24 school year, and we hope that all of our teachers and those employees that just worked during the school year are enjoying their summer and truly having a safe and relaxing break as they prepare for the 24-25 school year. The Reimagine MAS 2024 and beyond transition plans are going extremely well. Adult and community education classrooms have been moved to Milan High School. All fifth grade classrooms have been moved to the middle school. All second grade classrooms have been moved to Simons Elementary School. The infant and toddler program rooms have been moved to Paddock. So all of our building to building moves are completed. We did hire a moving company, and that was one of the best moves we made. They were tremendously professional. They handled it very well. They moved an entire grade level, so 5 classrooms, everything in them, in 2 days. It would have taken our custodians weeks to do that. We don't have the trailers and the trucks to do it, and it would have taken them away from the critical cleaning and waxing and preparing of the building. So, and it was really, I was surprised at how inexpensive it was to hire a moving company. And we were able to find one that had experience in moving schools. The teachers were very satisfied with the moves. They were here on a lot of days seeing their stuff get taken to the truck at one building, and then they drive over to the other building and see it get dropped off in their rooms. And we just want to thank all the teachers that were involved in that. We also want to remind our school families that the building configurations for 24-25 are changing. Paddock will now be birth through first grade. Simons will be second through fourth grade. The middle school will be 5th through 8th grade, and the high school will be 9th through 12th grade, and adult and community education. We also want to remind our elementary families that Paddock and Simons start and end times will be switching. It's only a 10-minute difference, but it's a difference. So Simons will start first at 8:50 a.m. and Paddock will start second at 9 a.m. For all those families that use school transportation and the bus system, this won't be anything you have to worry about. The buses are going to pick your kids up at the same time because that's all one run for Paddock and Simons. It's just which building do those buses go to first. For those families that are driving their students or have their students walking, they do need to remember that the times are changing, and we will be sending information out through our instant messenger system to all families. I also want to let everyone know that all before and after school care, so many people know that as breakfast club and prime time, will be housed at Paddock. It is still open to families of 5th graders that will now be at the middle school. They'll be able to get brought over to Paddock and still be able to have after school or before school care. Families interested in that should reach out to Sheila Meyer at 439-5118. The last thing I want to talk about today, for anyone who was keeping an eye on Lansing, the legislature and the governor are currently working on a school aid budget for the 24-25 school year. Current discussions include the possibility of a $0 increase to the per pupil foundation allowance. This is after all of their preliminary budgets included $240 or more per pupil. I urge our community members tonight or tomorrow to get on the phone to your state legislators and tell them that K-12 education has to be appropriately funded. With all costs rising for Milan area schools and every other district in this state, a $0 increase for per pupil foundation allowance is unacceptable, and it will lead to cuts in every area of the budget. We cannot see 10 to 15% increases in costs and $0 increases in our revenue and expect to be able to continue to offer everything that we are offering. So I urge our community members to contact your legislators and tell them to appropriately fund K-12 education. We at least need the inflationary rate increase in the per pupil foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Board member comments.
Mr. Sisto.
Yeah, Mr. Farrell.
I'll be very brief. I just want to echo everything that Mr. Gearbaugh said. It was quite a surprise when we got the information that there was the potential for a $0 increase for the per pupil allowance. So we have anticipated $241 increase per pupil. If we do not receive that, it will certainly impact the bottom line of our budget. So we're projecting a $75,000 ending fund balance for fiscal year 24-25, and that was based on the assumption of $241 increase per pupil. So again, I just want to echo what Mr. Gearboss said. You've stated everything factual and correct. Please get out and let the legislature know how you feel about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrow. Ms. Pryor?
I'm also going to echo the same sentiments. If you want to reach out to your legislatures, there's a few web pages that you can access via the internet. You can type in your address and it will give you who represents you. You can go to michiganvotes.org, and you can also go to house.mi.gov and help find your legislatures. The funding that they're talking about not approving is critical to this district in providing the services that you want to see for your children. So please reach out to them tonight or tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pryor. Ms. Heika?
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I don't think that it will be devastating. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it, but if we don't receive at least the inflationary rate increase and the foundational allowance, it will be devastating. I don't think if you've been watching these meetings for long, I don't think I know that you understand what we're talking about and how hard we have worked to maintain the budget that we have, and how conservative we are in estimating our budget. And a $241 per pupil increase was not outside the realm of possibility. And I, for one, when I got the email yesterday from Mr. Gerbaugh saying that that was the proposal, I checked to make sure it wasn't spam, because I couldn't believe that that's where we were. So please reach out. Don't forget to reach out to the governor, right? She's part of this as well. So
Yep.
not just your legislators,
Absolutely.
reach out to the governor as well, because she could be the last stop here, and she's very involved in all of the discussions, and she needs to know how we all feel about this as well. Then on a lighter note, I do also want to thank everyone who participated in the 5th grade and the 8th grade recognition nights. I was at the 8th grade recognition night. It was a lot of fun, and just to see all those people get together and just celebrate their students, and to see the students celebrate each other is a lot of fun to watch. So I appreciate everyone who takes time out of their personal lives to make that happen for our community. I also want to say one last congratulations to the girls softball team. Those girls, they went from not even having honorable mention in the state rankings to being 3rd. They went to the state semifinals. They put up a huge fight to an incredible team who ended up winning everything. And then many of those girls fought hard, played in that heat, went home, turned around, and 6 of them, I think, started their travel season the very next day. So these girls are very dedicated to their craft, and they really represented us well, because that was a hard game, and those girls did not give up. They kept fighting. And I'm just very proud of all of them, because it was clear how much this meant to all of them. And I want to thank the community. I mean, city council members, the mayor, there were people from our church that showed up. I mean, entire families came, not only to East Lansing to watch the state semifinal game, but out to Jackson to watch, I don't know if that's the quarterfinal. I'm not very good at this.
Quarterfinal.
But, and then, it was such a great experience to see all of these people who were there to support the girls. And then, there was like random travel coaches from their past that showed up to watch too, that were nearby. So just thank you to everyone who made that trek out. I know it wasn't easy. Those games were in the middle of the day and they weren't very close. But I just appreciate the community support, and I appreciate those girls. And many of them were named to the Ann Arbor All-Area Dream Team, including Layla Daniels, Mariah Steins, and Reese Knox, and I believe Haley Knox received an honorable mention, and Coach Kirk Davis was named Coach of the Year. So it's just been a phenomenal run, and I'm very proud of all of them. Thank you.
Excellent. So yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but they faced a Division I college recruit as a pitcher. I mean,
The pitcher and the shortstop.
yeah. So, I mean, two Division I college recruits versus, yeah,
And they're twins.
there you go. You can't ask for much better. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just to put a number to some of the conversation that the board members are having, it's important to understand we do budget conservatively. So we had proposed budgets from the House, the Senate, and the governor. The lowest of those three budgets included $241 per pupil in increase. That's what we budgeted. That dollar amount not coming to us is a difference of almost $450,000. And again, we budgeted conservatively. We didn't take the middle, we didn't take the high. We took the lowest of the three proposed budgets. And now, in the tail end of the discussions, all that's gone. And that will be devastating not only to this district, but to every district across the state of Michigan.
And historically, that's what, I mean, we've been able to, I mean, historically, sometimes it's higher than that.
Yeah,
So-
normally when we budget the lowest, it's something higher than that when the three groups come out of their consensus conference. I don't know what happened this year in Lansing. I haven't gotten the information to understand what conversations happened, what quote unquote horse trading happened. I don't know
Yeah.
how this came about.
I mean,
Been in this job 16 years and I've never seen anything like that. I was shocked when the email came out yesterday. Completely shocked.
so, I mean, they did say the vote was going to happen today. So hopefully the fact that it hasn't happened is something that we, yeah,
Yep.
yet, I mean, yet it's still, they can go, yeah, it was supposed to be early this morning that they were going to vote. But they went into caucus for quite a while, didn't come back until the afternoon to even start voting, and they started voting on many other things. So yeah, it's devastating is the word. I mean, without almost $500,000, there's a lot that is going to have to be cut for this district. So, and not just this district. So, all right, on that great news.
Can I just say one more thing
Yeah,
about it
absolutely.
too? And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Gearba, but this is not a situation where the school aid fund is experiencing losses such that we would expect that there would be a very low foundational increase. My understanding is that there is money in the school aid fund, and the state has been touting, at least for the last few weeks, that the pension fund is overfunded. Now, we can have a discussion about what that means and doesn't mean, but the point here is that we're not in crisis mode when it comes to the school aid fund, so this lack of an increase makes absolutely no sense.
Correct. There are dollars in the school aid fund to be spent. They are choosing to spend them elsewhere and not on K-12 education.
Public K-12 education.
Correct.
All right. Any other? All right, I need a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Section 81C of the Michigan Open Meetings Act for negotiation strategies.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Farrow.
It's been moved and supported to enter into closed session pursuant to Section 81C of the Michigan Open Meetings Act for negotiation strategies. This is the last, there will be no other votes after this except we will adjourn. So this is the last order of business for this evening. Any other comments? All right. It's been moved and supported to enter into closed session pursuant to Section 81C of the Michigan Opens Meeting Act for negotiation strategies. Ms. Heike?
Heike, yes. Pryor?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Farrow?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
We are going into closed session at 7:58 p.m. All right, we are returning to open session at 8:49 p.m. And we are adjourning at 8:49 p.m.